Okay, and as I said, welcome to Social Media for Solopreneurs and Happy Small Business Week. And we are excited to present to you Caroline Hermans, Communications Director for the Small Business Development Center, Delaware's branch. And she is going to give you some amazing information. I have to say, I myself am not an expert, even though I'm a communications director in social media, and I've used Caroline. She's given me some great tips on how particularly to use Instagram. And so I'm very grateful for her partnership and the help she's provided. And I hope that that she can help you as well. Couple of housekeeping items. We will be posting the slides and the recording of this webinar to de.gov/smallbizmonth, and I will drop that into the chat after the webinar. So no later than tomorrow, we'll have it up. And then Caroline will be taking questions throughout, and you can drop those questions into the chat. And without further ado, Caroline, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you to the Division of Small Business for having me. We're really excited to be able to talk about these things. And I think, as Andrea said, learning all the tips and tricks is a lifelong endeavor. So I'm really glad that so many of you registered and came back to join us today for this webinar. We're going to cover social media for solopreneurs today. As we kick things off, I will say I want to introduce myself a little bit. As Andrea said, I'm the communications manager for the Delaware Small Business Development Center. If you're not familiar with us, I just dropped my own little intro in the chat, which includes my name, my title, my company, and our website if you want to go check us out. But I really encourage everyone in this webinar to do the same, especially as we get going here. If you drop your name, your small business's name, and somewhere that we can connect with each other. I think as we talk about social media, let's give it a kickstart. If any of you are active on any platforms, feel free to share some of that information in the group chat, in the webinar chat, I mean. And we'll just get a jump start on networking a little bit with each other and getting some new followers. So as you do that, I wanted to say that I come from a little bit of a mixed background. I'm actually an entrepreneur myself. I'm a musician, recording artist, and I do lots of live shows. So I can totally appreciate being the one-person show for not only running a business and taking care of all those details all the time, but also running my own social media for that business. So I do absolutely appreciate that it is tricky, and it is tricky to prioritize things all the time. So please know that I come from that perspective as we talk about these things today. But professionally, I've also worked as a multimedia strategist inside a marketing agency. So a lot of those conversations about where to focus my effort, where to focus my budget. That's what I do professionally, is help small businesses answer those questions for themselves. And so today, really, we're focusing on social media, but we really want to make sure that we talk about how you get to make decisions in this space and what you can prioritize one thing over the other. We're trying to make the next best decision is always what we're trying to work on. So today, we're going to go over some sort of high-level things, a lot of best practices and concepts for social media. I'll review a couple of major platforms that we like to use. And then really we want to talk a lot about planning and execution. So what tools can we use? How can we make some of those next best decisions? And really our goal today is to make sure you are putting effort towards actually meeting a business goal, actually making something happen, and really understanding how social media fits into that picture as a solopreneur. So I'm excited to see some people already in the chat. I see Nani's Shea Butters, an in-home childcare business. I see Cash Collections. Mark from Lewis, thank you all for jumping into the chat. I really love to see those as we scroll by. As Andrea said, if you have questions while you go, please drop them in the Q&A or the chat. But today we can get going. So social media is a two-way conversation. That's usually how I like to preface this conversation. It is a lot. There's a lot of moving parts, but at its core, social media is meant to be the digital version of a conversation. It is where we build community. It's where we get together an audience that likes our stuff or maybe even knows us personally, right? All of our friends and family on our personal social media accounts. Social media at its core is meant to be a connector. It is a place where we can build community, or like I said, build that audience. So most of today's conversation isn't going to be necessarily about personal social media. It's going to be more toward business, more toward the solopreneur. And at the core of that conversation is how can we engage potential customers, or even re-engage with existing customers. But really, as we go throughout the day, if you have a moment, if you want to grab a pencil or pen, a notepad, open your notes app on your phone, whatever you're most comfortable with, really today is meant to introduce you to lots of different things and have you note down what things you want to maybe go home and do the homework on, what things you want to dive into or learn more about. We're going to cover lots of different things today, and I want to make sure that you walk away with a little bit more of that information, or at least the question of where to go next. So, how do we choose a platform? This is always one of my favorite discussions. There are a lot of platforms. We'll cover, I think, the top 4 or 5 today. But really, we're focusing on where we're going to focus our efforts. So as a solopreneur, we cannot do everything. That is part of setting the correct and manageable expectations for ourselves. So choosing a platform is really a big part of this conversation. We want to make sure that wherever you focus your time, your effort, your skill, and even your money, that is the right place that's actually going to drive some of your business goals. So here we're going to break down a couple different platforms and talk through how to make some of these decisions. But I really love this acronym here, well, not acronym, but model: who, what, when, where, why. We'll get into that in a second, but I really want to show kind of how we start to approach choosing a platform here. So over on the right side are a list, basically, of different types of media that you'll see on social media. So some things are a short post that's just written words, right? Just copy. Some things are long form video where you've created this 20-minute video about a certain topic. Some things are graphics or photos in different formats. And across all of our social media platforms, most of these types of messaging or most of these tactics you can use, you'll find on most platforms. So it doesn't really help us choose a platform when we just think, okay, where can I post a photo? We want to get a little more critical than that. We want to look at what is my target audience? What is the exact person that I'm trying to reach? I ask small businesses this all the time. When your target audience is everyone, you haven't done the homework yet. So I want you to actually focus on peeling back the layers and finding what your actual target audience is. That might include demographic information, that might include location information, or what stage they're at in a certain process, right? If I am a tax consultant, I'm probably not focused on entrepreneurs that already have a tax consultant. That kind of information is really important when we think about our target audience. So I want you to think a little bit deeper about that, and that will actually help you later in the platform conversation. We'll go through that W's list, which is really a fun exercise that I encourage you to take notes on. But really, what kind of content fits my brand? That's this list over here. If you are a frozen yogurt shop and you are fun, you're colorful, you've got a lot going on, it's very social, we're probably going to dive into things like short form video or graphics or even just photos and carousels. We want to share an entire photo gallery of a fun event we had. If you are a tax accountant and you are not that fun and colorful and wonderful, that doesn't mean there isn't a place for you on social media. There really is. But that's how we find our platform. We find where on a certain platform we can share content that really matches my brand, my business, the message that I'm trying to put out. I also ask entrepreneurs to reflect a little bit. What am I most comfortable creating? A lot of times when we approach social media for the first time, we're like, okay, I can barely take a picture on my phone. How could I ever manage social media? It's daunting. So I encourage you to think about what things you might be most comfortable with. If you know how to write a persuasive letter, long form copy might be where you're most comfortable. You might think about, how do I start a blog? How do I share that blog on social media and make that content work for me? If you aren't super comfortable with taking photos on your camera phone, who is? Maybe you can ask someone to teach you or show you some best practices or tips. I'm happy to share with you at the end of the webinar. But if you can get comfortable creating certain types of content, like we see on the right here, if one of those things stands out to you, okay, maybe I can put a graphic together. I love Canva. I'm really good in Publisher, right? Find that thing and find which platform that it works best on. That'll help you choose a platform. And then really at the end of the day, where can I build community and reach my business goals? I didn't put business here, but goals in general are something I really like to center all of this around. If you have a certain goal, like number of followers, that's wonderful. But as a business, I want to make sure that number of followers isn't a bajillion and then I only make 5 sales. My goal is to make an X number of sales. My goal is to have X number of people join my mailing list, my emailing list. So what are those goals and which platforms are going to help me build the community around that, around my business, and actually reach those goals? So this is our who, what, when, where, why activity. I really love this one. This is really a very simplified version of what it takes to create an entire marketing strategy. So we do this exercise even when we're talking about traditional marketing or digital marketing. Today, we're going to hone this in on social media really, really closely. So as a solopreneur, whether you're new in business, whether you're just starting up, whether you're trying to grow or sort of break out of this pattern that you've been in for a while, this is a great reflection to do on your target audience and how they interact with social media. So here, we're going to do a little bit of work to figure out where we're going to be able to access our target audience and how we're going to make sure that that's a high engaging interaction. So firstly, who? Who is our potential audience? And where on social media is that potential audience? So by that, I mean, if you are trying to reach the 18 to 40 crowd, you're probably safe on Instagram. Most people have an Instagram account, whether it's professional, whether it's their personal Instagram account. Most users on that account are within that age range. So if your target audience for your business is people in that age range, great. That's a great way to help make that decision. If your target audience is the CEO, is the C-suite person for another business, maybe you're trying to make a B2B relationship. Are they on Instagram? Sure, but they're on Instagram for their personal account. Are they on LinkedIn? Maybe they're trying to create some professional relationships and a professional network on LinkedIn. That's important stuff. Those users, that target audience, kind of matches the users on that certain platform. I'll break those down in for each platform in a second, but really we're thinking about who. Where is that ideal person? Who is that ideal person? We got to do that first. Then we think about what kind of messages, topics, media types there are on all these different platforms, that list I showed you. These are all types of content. So when I think about the what, it's what people are posting, what people are sharing. And content really refers to everything on that spectrum, but content can be really particular to the platform. So you think of things like Pinterest are these very aesthetically pleasing photos. I want it to be artsy. I want it to be cool. LinkedIn is usually written copy. It's a little more friendly to graphics. LinkedIn is very highly professional and clean, not super artsy. Doesn't mean you can't be one or the other on a different platform, but really, what is the main type of content on that platform? It's going to help us make that decision. We also think of platforms. I'll list the few. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter. These are all really examples of platforms. And a platform basically is the overarching space where social media is happening. So Facebook is a platform, but there's also parts of Facebook. There's events, there's your groups on Facebook, there's your feed, there's your personal page, there's your business page. There's all these types of different features or different parts of a platform that are also important to consider. So I'm not just going to start an Instagram page. I'm going to think about, okay, do I want to use Instagram Reels? Do I want to just post things? Do I want to put them on my story? All those different parts of a platform are going to help us to determine what's going to be the best place for us to live as a business. We also think about when. I get this question a lot. So a lot of times people will ask me, when's the best time to post? That completely depends on your platform. If you are posting on LinkedIn on a Sunday morning, you're probably not hitting that business community, but maybe you're hitting LinkedIn on a Sunday night when people are getting prepared for their Monday at work, right? Maybe you're hitting LinkedIn on Monday night when everybody went to work and is back on LinkedIn on Monday night. Those are important thoughts to have as you think about which platform to use, where and when, which platform people are using at which time. I also will impart that now that algorithms are a little more complex, a lot of that has changed over the last 10 years or so. Now that algorithms are more complex, that is kind of the system that decides when people see certain things. In the past, if you posted something at 7 o'clock in the morning and I logged on at 7:01, you'd be the first thing on the top of my feed. That has really changed over the last 10 years and is no longer really true for most social media platforms. So we have to think about, I can be really strategic about when I post something, but it's not necessarily going to beat out the algorithm that keeps the app going. So I can try my best, but I can't always be perfectly accurate when it comes to predicting when people will see my content, if that makes sense. And then I also like to think about our why. When we are thinking about different platforms, like we've mentioned a little bit, LinkedIn is very business focused. So we think things are educational, things are of a networking sort of mood to them or theme to them. Instagram is sort of fun and social. It's more of an entertainment platform. TikTok and YouTube are especially two great examples. They are full of content, but who's going to watch content that isn't either educational or entertaining? So for you on social media, think about how you can be educational or how you can be entertaining, and that will help us solve the why of which platform to be on and how we're going to use it. So this is a little sample. If you want more in detail on this activity or how you can really do it for your business, I can go over it in Q&A, or that would be a great time to connect and we can go through this for your own business. So I'm gonna just quickly check the chat. I do see people, here we go, Designed Life Coaching LLC. I see a yarn shop in Newark later this year, Ministry of Yarn, that's exciting. Precious Jubilee Decor. I see Andrea and Susie. Wonderful. Exceed Digital Media. So feel free to keep dropping your information in the chat. It's really also helpful for me to see what kinds of businesses I have here so I can speak a little bit more particularly to who you might want to reach. So here we are into, and there's Lee, hello. Here we are into our popular platforms. So as you've heard me mention already today, just in an overview setting, a lot of our popular platforms are very different from each other. I'll go through some best practices for kind of everything a little bit after this, but popular platforms, please know that we are kind of focusing on picking one, picking one to focus on and really throw your, effort behind. So as I go through these, think about your business model, think about your who, what, when, where, why, and see which one of these might be the one that you want to choose and move forward with for your specific type of business. So I'm going to give some upper level kind of overviews of each of these platforms, explain their purpose really. But I want you to be thinking about your business and maybe writing down one or two of these that you think is worth putting the effort in, even if you exist on multiple platforms. So we'll start off with Facebook. Facebook is one of the tried and true social media platforms. It is one of the first, if you think of like MySpace was kind of really the first to be completely popular all over the world. But really in the early 2000s, Facebook began its meteoric rise. It has risen to become an entire, not just one social media platform, but Meta in its entirety started from the group that started Facebook. And Meta actually acquired Instagram several years ago. So those two are part of the same company, Meta. And Facebook really started as a way to build community. It started as a way to connect with people you maybe sort of knew or knew socially, and be able to digitally connect with them after you're not standing right in front of them. So really Facebook has always meant to be a community building platform. And when you're on there, you'll see that there's lots of different parts of the platform, like I said, that really mirror that need to build community. So a lot of times when we talk about where's the best place to host events, where on social media can I promote my event? Usually it's Facebook. Facebook has an entire events category of its app, which really is super successful. It makes it easy to invite your connections to an event, to upload and even update event information all the time. And it's free. So that is huge. All these social media platforms we'll cover today are free to use. And really, Facebook is meant for that kind of interaction where I know you socially, and I might say, hey, Lee, why don't you come to this event with me? And I just invite her on Facebook. I don't have to send an email. I don't have to call. I don't have to send a text. I am just inviting that person from a suggested list and saying, come on out to my grand opening of my business event, right? So it's huge for that. It's meant for that. And a lot of people use Facebook as a personal social media. So you see Facebook's age range for who's on the app is really, really broad. We have all the way up through grandmas and grandpas. We have all the way down to young people getting their first social media account. It is a place for everybody. And what's interesting about Facebook is there are so many niches of Facebook. They use things like groups or business pages and things like that to kind of find your people and put them all in one place. Facebook is really great at doing that. We also see lots of different content is popular on Facebook. So Facebook, you can do pretty much anything you want. You can go live, you can post photos in a big gallery, you can post 200 photos to an online gallery on Facebook and they live there. People can comment, share them, save them, all sorts of things. You can tag other people in your content, which is huge. It is really friendly to whatever you want to do and whatever your business wants to do. So if you are a writer, you can be a writer on Facebook. Now, if you integrate some visual aspects of it, maybe your writing will get that push from the algorithm and someone will see something pretty, but then stop to read what you've written. The important part here, the takeaway for Facebook, is it's really friendly to lots of different types of content. So no matter where you find yourself most comfortable, a lot of people do choose to approach Facebook as their first effort for their business. It is true that Facebook is really about that one-on-one personal interaction, but because it's such a community builder, right? We see people sharing things for their friends to see. We see that kind of handoff or referral of, hey, check out this business's post. I can share that post to one of my friends. And in that way, it's almost like a word of mouth recommendation. This is like the second best here. When someone shares something to your, direct message and says, oh, I'm checking out Niall's Favorite Services LLC for commercial and residential cleaning. I heard you just bought a building. Do you need a cleaner? Here they are, right? That is a sign off. That's almost like a recommendation from that person that you know, that you have a one-on-one connection with, that's saying, hey, check out this business. As a business owner, if any of you are already in business, you know that that personal handoff, that word of mouth is the top referral source. That is the best way to get someone to trust your business, to know about you, to be more curious about you even. And Facebook's a great place for that interaction to happen. You can also, like I said, sharing and tagging on this app, you can do it in a lot of ways. It does make it a little complex, managing Facebook in the best way or using all the Facebook best practices. It's got a steep learning curve. It's going to take a while to learn how to do it perfectly. And I don't really think there is a such thing as doing it perfectly, but it takes a while to learn all the ins and outs of Facebook. There's lots of different options, which makes it a little bit tricky to figure everything out. But once you get your bearings and you find something that works, you start to build your community, it just starts to double back on itself and become even stronger. So I really recommend thinking about Facebook if any of this resonated with you for your business. Also, if anybody has questions about a specific platform, please dump things in the Q&A or in the chat, and I can do my best to answer questions about this platform as I'm on these slides. So next, I mentioned a little bit already, but Instagram is also under the same parent company as Facebook, under Meta. So Instagram, I believe it started in 2011, 2012. And when it hit the market, it was one of the most popular apps in a short period of time that really the internet had ever seen. People downloaded Instagram at the speed of light. They were very interested in it. And initially, Instagram was very much for the people who were a little too young to love Facebook. So you had the Facebook crowd. They kind of started with Facebook in their college years and they still are on Facebook. But as their kids, as the generations went on, they needed a space to be, to be cool, to share content without necessarily being on the same app as their family or as their employer, right, where Facebook was. So everybody kind of dove into Instagram, and what made it really interesting is that it started as a photo sharing app. So it was a photo-driven social media platform. Everything was about how things looked. And people used to use Instagram a lot more often as a sort of blog. They would post whatever they were doing all day long, and they would post it as a feed post. So multiple posts a day. There wasn't a lot of, editing or things like that. It was, preset filters, and I'd post something and it would be just a quick little window into my life. Over the last 10 years or so, Instagram has really changed, and it's become this beast of social sharing. So think about the origins of Instagram, where people were sharing these very visual things. That's still really true on Instagram. You want to make sure that when you are developing content for Instagram, it looks good. That is the tried and true method of doing well on Instagram. Do things that look pretty, that someone wants to look at. That might be different for a lot of your businesses too. I don't want to, don't put yourself in a box. There are ways to make content that will do well on Instagram, that are nice to look at, that don't necessarily mean that any type of business can't engage with. So as an example, if I were a residential cleaning company, or the last one in the chat here, so I'm using it as an example. If I were a residential cleaning company, I could post graphics or a flyer that I made about a sale that I'm doing, or hey, if anyone signs a contract in the month of May, you get, trash service for the next 6 months or something, right? I could definitely be selling on Instagram for sure. But I could also be making videos. I could also be capturing some content. When something fun happens, when you maybe sign a new contract with a new building, maybe I go to the building and take a photo with my team in front of it and say, hey, we're so excited to start working with this building. Exciting that we've signed a new contract, or something like that, if you want to be public about those things. But as an example of a type of content, anything that looks like it came off of a person's phone usually does the best on Instagram. Instagram loves for things to feel natural, to feel social, right? So as you go through business and you want to make sure you're selling, you want to make sure you're talking about your services or things like that, find a way to do it visually. So one of the things we do with the SBDC, we have to share a lot about what we do, right? We help businesses, we do free one-on-one advising. But what we try to do is use a part of Instagram called a carousel, where it actually shows 2 images in the same post. The first image is always an image. It's people working. It's someone at an event, right? But most of that phone screen, when you're scrolling through the app, is going to be an image. It's a nice, beautiful picture of people smiling, doing something, a brand new business that just opened. We try to use a nice photo. That's what people are on Instagram to see, that nice, pretty visual content. But it doesn't mean that the next slide of the carousel can't be something that is a graphic. So we try to partner those two together. That's one tactic that we've done as a business. So you can definitely do something similar, or find what works for your business. If you have graphic elements to what you do, maybe you're an artist and you want to share some of your art. One of the tricks on Instagram is actually anytime, like I said, it looks like it came out of a person's phone, but let's say that you are sharing a piece of art that you made. I just have a business card on my desk. So instead of this card just being on a flat, gray background and sitting on a table, what I might do instead is hold it up with my hand. And Instagram thinks, okay, that's a person's hand. That must be a piece of personal, exciting, beautiful content that looks human. It looks real, right? So even little things like that, you don't necessarily have to have your face in it, but your hand even is an algorithm boost on Instagram. So think creatively. Think, how can I make things look really cool? That is what Instagram is for. It can be photos, videos, stories on Instagram are also a huge thing. They are only up for 24 hours. So it makes it look like somebody's home. Somebody did something fresh and cool and social, right? So if your business starts to feel like that, making sure that you're always updating your Instagram is important, so that you look like someone's home, right? Using stories to show that you've been on the app in the last 24 hours is a really interesting tactic on Instagram. But really, again, that one-on-one personal interaction, lots of people are socially using Instagram. So when they want to find a nice new coffee shop, they are searching on Instagram. It's a search engine now. So when your stuff looks aesthetically pleasing and looks nice and visually engaging, they are more likely to come and patronize your business in that example. And sharing and tagging still rings true on Instagram. You can DM people things, you can tag them in posts. If you are actively running an Instagram account too, Facebook as well, tagging other people, tagging other businesses is really helpful on Instagram because it gets your name in front of whoever, in front of the other account's audience. So you're almost like doubling your audience if you partner with other people or you tag other people. So if there's any questions about Instagram specifically, feel free to drop them in the chat. So LinkedIn is a little bit of a different beast. We usually jokingly call it Facebook for business. It is a lot of the same content that can do well on Facebook, but really LinkedIn started as a professional networking tool. It is a virtual networking app. So when we're on LinkedIn, we want to keep all of our communication really professional. We want to make sure it's about career progression or a new certification that you got or a job that you're looking for, right? But as a business, how can you engage in that conversation on LinkedIn? How can you make sure that your content is exciting for someone using LinkedIn? Maybe you have a resource that someone could use to learn an industry skill. Maybe you are a business owner looking to connect with another business owner. You're likely both on LinkedIn. Not only can you follow each other's LinkedIn business pages, but you can connect with them personally and say, hey, give an example. So Denise with Thrive Pros Consulting, they do leadership development and employee training for small, mid-size, and large companies and specialize in DE&I training. So if Denise sees me posting or resharing something about a marketing webinar that I'm doing, and I say, hey everyone, I'm doing this webinar with the Division of Small Business. I'm so excited for this opportunity. I really love, public speaking, and I'm excited to do this. Denise might see that post and go, I bet you Caroline would be a great, potential client, right? So she might comment on my post and say, looks great, Caroline. I'm glad to see you doing that in your career. Or that's wonderful, Caroline. I'll definitely log on and check it out. That sort of support, kind of a mentor-mentee relationship, or someone just kind of supporting you in your network, that's what LinkedIn's for. But remember that it's always professional. So people can be funny, people can lean into fun content on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be stuffy, but it is always going to be professional, and you can expect people to behave as though their employer or a potential employer is always watching. So I encourage you and your business to do the same. But in that example, Denise might see, okay, well, maybe she is interested in doing a leadership development webinar. Maybe I'll DM her, right? So using that platform for those virtual networking things, it's the equivalent of walking up to someone at a networking event, shaking their hand and saying, hey, what do you do? That is what LinkedIn is for. And again, photos, graphics, long form copy, it's friendly to most of those things. LinkedIn, again, most social media, if you have a little bit of a visual element, that can sometimes help you to boost a little and get in front of people. But LinkedIn is really for that professional conversation. So lean into what that looks like for your business. I do want to address Twitter, which is now called X. So some of you may be actively running a Twitter account or managing a Twitter strategy right now. I will tell you that in probably the last 5 or 6 years, Twitter has taken really a turn, both from a company aspect and from a user engagement aspect. So if we're talking about the company, they've changed leadership, they've changed a lot of how they run the platform, which has led to lots of things like bugs and data issues, things like that. And on the front end of the app, where users are actually experiencing Twitter, there's been quite a bit of confusion. There's been starting to introduce it as a paid platform, things like that. So if you are an avid X or Twitter user, no harm in being active on that platform, but a lot of people have sort of done that mass evacuation of Twitter. So if you think that Twitter is where you really want to live, just make sure that it's part of a larger social media presence and that you can maybe retain your audience on another platform if Twitter, for some reason, is not going to serve you well. Like I said, it's quickly changing. Every week or so, we get an update of what's going on over on the X side of the house for social media. And really what did well for Twitter initially is that it was this short and sweet content. It was 140 characters or less, and it was these little blips of information. And so as I'm scrolling on social media, I could get a lot of information in one big scroll if I was on Twitter. But since it's changed so much and it's become more frustrating to use, we've seen a lot of users leave the app. The app itself has changed. It looks different. It feels different. And really, when you're creating content as a business and you're thinking about which of these platforms you might want to throw your weight behind, think of Twitter as a very short lifespan. When I scroll past your tweet, it's only taking up about 10% of my screen, and I'm scrolling on and scrolling away, right? So when that disappears, you worked hard to craft that tweet, but you only see it for the length of your phone screen. That's pretty much it. On other platforms like even LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, like we already covered, that is content that has a longer lifespan. It's going to live on your profile. It's going to live on your feed. Someone might see it and come back to it. Someone might share it with a friend and get another notification of it, right? So you kind of get to live out your content a little longer. I just wanted to make sure that I noted Twitter here because it is still an active platform. People do choose to use it. But for me, I have chosen to move away from Twitter just from an effort perspective. I don't want to necessarily throw a bunch of effort behind a platform that doesn't serve my content all the time, and my users aren't there anymore, right? Or who has left the app. So it's important to consider when you're thinking about diving into a new platform. Then I did think it was a good idea to address TikTok. I hear this a lot in social media conversations. Should I be on TikTok? I don't know. Like, there's a lot going on there, right? It is a short form video sharing platform. So if you love video and you want to create video, you maybe want to become sort of a content creator in that sense, TikTok might be where you want to live. I always say though, if you're interested in trying it for the first time, try it on Instagram Reels, because Instagram also has lots of other parts of the app that people are comfortable and familiar with. And if you build a community out of Reels, the rest of Instagram kind of keeps it there. TikTok is really, my third point here, not as personal, but big reach. TikTok is not something that you can be certain you're always reaching the audience that is located near you or the audience that wants your services, right? All the other apps are a little more focused and they're focused on community building. TikTok is really an entertainment and educational platform. It's kind of just YouTube. And we don't really build communities on YouTube in the same way that we do on Facebook or on Instagram or LinkedIn. So it is fun. It is a great new platform. It has a very, very young target audience. A lot of our users are between 16 and 35. But businesses are learning that it's a great tool if you need people all over the world to know who you are. If you are a Delaware-based business and you only serve within 20 miles of Milford, probably TikTok is not going to keep your stuff within 20 miles of Milford. You might get people across the country who think your content's wonderful, but they might not be the person who walks in the front door. It's not to say it can't be successful locally, but just keep in mind that when you're working really hard to create content, even if it's doing very well, it's hard to make sure that that focus is on the demographic region that you want. But it can be fun. I love TikTok. It is a great time. It's a very creative platform. It's got to be quick and snappy. It's hard to do right, but when you do it right, it goes really well. I also will note here that TikTok is in the midst of lots of legal conversations. So if you are watching the news on TikTok at all, you're going to see probably some changes in the future. Things are a little bit uncertain with this platform right now, whether it will still be available in the US, that kind of thing. What's important to note is that with any of these platforms, make sure that you're not just building community on that platform, but that they know who you are well enough that, for example, if you build up a wonderful community on TikTok, that if you say, hey guys, go to my website and buy something, or hey, make sure you follow me on Instagram, or make sure you friend me on LinkedIn, that you can kind of refer your audience around, that they trust you enough, you have a good relationship with them, and they'll follow your business no matter what platform you're on. So think of that as you start to create really an audience on one platform or not. TikTok's a great example. Maybe it will be there, maybe it won't, but it could be fun, at least for the short term, to dive into a new type of content creation. So as we kind of wrap up the platforms here, I do want to note that social media has some different tiers. So when you are talking about social media, I want to make sure to clarify the difference between these three. Most social media is unpaid, so it should cost you $0.00, but it is going to cost you time and effort, which we'll get into. but it's a lot of unpaid posted content. Most people who use all social media platforms are doing it for free. So that's important to note. This is an affordable marketing strategy if it comes down to dollars and cents. If your organic content is doing really well, there's kind of a middle ground here where you can throw a little bit of money behind it and sort of boost it. So sometimes, especially Instagram and Facebook, have this feature where I might post something and it does really well. Lots of people are liking it and seeing it. They're going to say, "Hey, do you want to boost this content?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I've got $10. Let me go ahead and boost it." You're putting money behind it, but it's still organic content that did well the first time. When you put money behind it, you already kind of know it's going to be successful, and you get to choose where your money is showing that content. So I can say, "Hey, this post was really successful. I want it to boost and show everybody around my bakery in Milford that they need to come in and get this, new thing we posted about." Boosting allows you to be really particular with your dollars and make sure that it's going to the right audience, which is a really awesome tool. It's a newer tool too. It's only been around for the last couple years or so. Then you have paid ads, which are a whole new world, which I probably won't get into today. I really like to focus on organic social media because it is so affordable. And for the solopreneur, a lot of you are probably nodding your head yes to that budget. Paid ads, it takes a lot of money to be very successful with paid ads. And that's something we wanted to cover today, is managing your expectations for budget. Paid ads could be anywhere from $50 to $5,000 to really unlock the potential of a paid ad algorithm. It is not as affordable as making really good, solid organic content. A lot of agencies or businesses who have grown and scaled their social media might find that some mix of these three is the most successful thing. So I don't necessarily want you to never pay for anything on social media and just stick with organic content, but I will show you this. This is my favorite meme about social media, I think. So you'll see kind of at the bottom here, you'll see organic marketing, where this base in cheerleading is sort of holding up the cheerleader ahead of her. So you'll see that organic marketing, that is your profile looking good. That's your bio being well crafted and well written. That is someone who's active on social media all the time, who's liking and sharing and engaging and doing their best, putting their best foot forward organically without spending a dime. Then we have paid marketing. If you pay for an ad to be done and somebody sees your ad and goes, "Wow, Caroline's LLC, I love that ad. I'm interested, but I'm not quite sold yet." They might click on my ad, go to my page, and what they're going to see is all of my organic content. So even if my ad is beautiful, it's going to lead that customer back to my organic content, to my profile. And if my profile looks a mess, they might not buy that thing. So we always look at it like this. Organic marketing is your foundation. You want to make sure you have a strong presence on whatever platform you choose for your business, and update it, keep it active, keep it alive, right? Keep it very strong as a base. When you decide to do paid marketing because you want to be really good at making a sale, because you want to hit that certain customer and get that conversion up at the top, you see they're smiling together for this lovely photo, but they wouldn't be able to do it without organic marketing. So I really want to hit that home for you all, that if you're willing to try something, try organic first and maybe dip into boosting your content so that you know it's going to be successful before you go to spend $1. So best practices, I'm sharing a few here, and this is more, again, general for all of social media. We talked a little bit about how to choose a platform, which I know was very high level. We're talking about for your business, how can you maybe make decisions on where you need to go? We talked about each kind of platform and who's using it, what it's really meant for, what kind of content does well. Really, for the rest of this conversation, I want these two things to take hold. I am a planner. I love data. I love planning stuff, writing stuff down. You may or may not be the same. You might be the person who has 100 sticky notes next to their desk and is writing things down. You might be the person who remembers everything and then sits down to write those emails and goes, "Okay, I got my mental checklist. I'm good to go." But really, good plans are your foundation for everything marketing and business. But really, for social media, when you create a plan for what you're going to do instead of just winging it, what it really helps to do is not just help you be more successful in the social media you create, but it also helps you to ease your stress and manage your expectations. If you have a plan to post 400 posts in the next month, maybe we focus on how that's actually going to get done and plan how many hours does it take me to make a post. Can I really do that in the next month? Maybe I should manage my expectations. Maybe I should try for 2 posts in the next month. Maybe I should try for 4 or 10, right? But creating that plan helps you to walk through and check yourself, really. It helps you to not set lofty goals for yourself that you're never able to achieve without being super stressed. It's not about not reaching for the stars. It's about making a plan to get there so that when things go wrong or you maybe don't achieve something, you can go backwards in your plan and say, okay, maybe we do this differently. Maybe we pivot here. It's just like running a business. Focus it in and run your social media this way. The more planning you can do, I promise you, the better off you'll be and the less stress you'll have as you manage all these things. I always like this quote too. Social media is a lot of learning. It's a big learning curve. So I love this quote about jack of all trades, master of none. It's an adage about trying to do too many things, basically, and that you'll never really hone in on the one thing that's important. The second half of this quote, people always forget. It's still better than a master of one. So I would rather you know from the end of this webinar here and from trying some things, kind of best practices for social media in general. I want you to be able to think critically about these conversations and not worry about being the Instagram expert when you wake up next week. I want this to be a learning experience and for you to lean into things like planning or asking yourself critical questions about what you're going to put effort into for social media. So I love this quote. I see myself this way. I love to be a jack of all trades, and some things I'm better at than others, but having that general knowledge of how to talk to people, where they're going to be, that W's exercise, applying that to every decision I'm making in marketing helps you be a master of a lot. So a couple of best practices here. Make sure that all of your posts have a call to action on any social media platform. Tell people what you want them to do. Ask them to follow along for more. Ask them to head to your website or the link in your bio. Make sure that you tell your audience what you want them to do if they like your stuff. It's always a helpful tip. In general, when you're creating content, make sure that it's high quality. Nobody wants to watch a blurry video or listen to audio that they can't understand. So make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. I don't want you to spend so much time worrying about quality that you never make anything. But keep in mind that if you manage your expectations and you reach for the next best step, right? You maybe try making a graphic, but keep it very, very simple and clean. That's a great first step. I'd rather you do that than try to make a graphic with 400 elements, get lost in Canva somewhere and too frustrated to continue. So make sure you're kind of managing that step by step. But these are really some good tips for just in general content creation. Good lighting, high quality video and audio. Most times your smartphone can do it for you. Make sure your camera is clean. Please clean off your camera. That's a good hot tip, but it will really help you with the quality of your video and your audio. Don't go graphic crazy. A lot of people try to use graphics on social media all the time. The algorithm isn't super graphic friendly. So keep in mind that if you spend a lot of time on a graphic, it can go on that print flyer, it can go in the bulletin, but when it goes on social media, Instagram's gonna go, that's not real, that's not fun, friendly visual content. I'd rather see a picture of the back of the kid's shirt that you sponsored for the softball game that's right out of somebody's cell phone. That kind of content, boom, it's gonna help the algorithm grow your reach. So don't go graphic crazy. You can still use them tastefully, work them in when you see that they're working for you. But really, your whole point is direct connection. Speak to your audience, speak to them directly, make sure you're giving them content that they want to see on a platform that they're looking for it. And really making it happen, like I said, the solopreneur really has all the challenge of where do I go next? What do I do? How do I get help? I want you to be able to think critically about these things and be open to change when platforms change or you're trying a new thing. I usually keep up with how things change by using my platform. So if I think my business is going to do well on Facebook, the first thing I'm going to do is start scrolling on Facebook and see what types of content I see, what things get a lot of likes, what things don't. Use your chosen platforms, and that will be the best learning tool you can have. Or even find creators that give you fresh tips on that platform specifically. And also, if you ever need help, we have our Small Business Development Center or Division of Small Business that are a call or an email away. And if you ask for specific help, there are advisors on each of our teams. There's the regional business managers who can at least answer some questions or point you in the right direction, which is super helpful. I do some management tips and tricks. Again, it's that sort of critical thinking questions. The one thing I'll call out here is that when you're thinking of a budget, if you're going to spend money on social media, make your budget first and then go figure out what you want to do with it. Don't go to a marketing agency and say, can you manage my Instagram? How much is that going to cost? Say, hey, I have this kind of business. I've got $200. Can you help me at all? Or what ways could you help me for that budget? That's a way to make sure that you're not underwater and that social media isn't pulling really necessary capital from your business. And then I'll leave this up for a second for tools and platforms. The ones on the left here are platforms that allow you to schedule content, to plan, to make those decisions, and really monitor the data. So see how well you're doing on all those platforms. I love Sprout Social. I've seen lots of people love Monday. I've used Hootsuite. They're all wonderful. But depending on your platform, you might find one of these is really helpful and in your price range. The ones on the right, the first three, Zapier, Asana, and Trello, are things that will help you with automation and project management. So the more things that can happen without you thinking about it, the better. The more organized you can be, the better. So those three in yellow are always helpful. Canva is a great design platform. I love it. It's really superseded the need for Adobe at this point in content creation. So I encourage you to check it out. And then Constant Contact and MailChimp are email platforms, but they can actually take some of your email content and turn it into social content for you. So I included them here as tools and platforms that I encourage you to check out. And then really, I like to go over this example with entrepreneurs as a closing. So when you're thinking about where to start or which platform to start on, if this was a lot of information and you're like, okay, but what do I actually do? Thinking about what you might want to do and then making a decision about whether you want to do it or whether you want help with it. And most entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurs, live on this spectrum. I can do it all myself. Social media is something that I can absolutely do myself. I might need a little while to learn how to do it correctly. I might need a while to get the skills to design something or write copy. It might be really ugly at first, and then I'm kind of learning as I go, but at least I'm connecting with people. I'm talking to people and building my community. That is all stuff that you can do for yourself, and you can do it for free. However, your time and effort is really where entrepreneurs get stuck with this. How do I possibly prioritize marketing and social media when I have 100 other things to do? That's where we think about hired help. So social media agencies, contractors, your niece or nephew who knows how to use Instagram, that is help. So if it's going to cost you, then it probably will be something all the way on the end of the spectrum where an agency will kind of take the reins for you and take care of it. But this good, fast, cheap is always a decision you have to make. So you can only choose two. If it's going to be good and it's going to be fast, an expert's going to do it and have that priority to do it, it's not going to be cheap. It could be several $100s. It could be several $1,000s. It could be something that needs to go on for 6 months, right? But when you want something to be fast and cheap, it's probably not going to be good. You can't pay an expert, a little bit of money and expect that all of their expertise is going to apply to this project. If you are, like I said, working with a niece or nephew on managing your social media, it's probably going to be fast and it's probably going to be cheap, right? But they might not be the expert, might not be that great, but at least you're doing something. So just keep in mind when you make decisions on social media and what you're going to spend time, effort, or money on, know that you're only choosing two of these: good, fast, and cheap. All right, I'm going to skip right to here. So if anyone wants to take our survey for the end of the session here, and then I'll go back and answer some Q&A. So I see a couple things in the chat. What is the best way to set up a shop on IG? So when you set up an Instagram account, what you'll do is make sure that it's set up as a business account, and that will allow you to list items in a shop. And it really is pretty user-friendly once you get into the back end of Instagram. So if you choose to use it on a mobile device or on a computer, once you go through setting up an Instagram account, changing that account to a business account, in the back end, you should be able to see a button that says list an item or shop, and then you can build your shop there almost within the platform, which is pretty cool. So you can sell things right through Instagram, which is awesome. It's another way that you can use social media to drive your business. So I hope that helps. I also see, what is a good starting budget for having someone handle social media? Like I said, good, fast, cheap. If you want it to be things that are constantly rolling out of your Instagram, but it might not be the top quality thing, you can get somebody who does that for pretty cheap. And when I say pretty cheap, it really depends on the contractor. So if you are a type of business who has a lot of ideas of what you want to post and you just need someone to execute, that's going to be cheaper than asking someone to come up with all the ideas for you. That is still work to come up with those ideas and those strategies. So it could range anywhere from, here's $100 a month and they're gonna create 10 posts for you per month. That's a lot of times what contracts will look like. I encourage you to write a contract and please review it. Contracts are very, very important in this space. You don't want to blow money and then get nothing in return. But it could be $100 a month. It could be $50 a month for kind of that low tier content production. You could pay all the way up through several thousands of dollars for an agency to come into your business, ask you questions, get an understanding, and then try to answer all those questions and execute it for you. So strategy and execution are two different things in social media. You're going to pay for both. But the more of the strategy work that you can do yourself, then you're only looking for someone to execute it for you, which can be a little bit more affordable, which is usually helpful. Does a graphic using people boost the algorithm as well as a photo from UGC? So yeah, UGC is user-generated content. So when I mentioned Instagram especially loves when things look like they come out of somebody's camera phone, that looks like user-generated content. So when the algorithm that's deciding which posts get shown on a feed, if I am following the Division of Small Business and they post a graphic or they post a nice photo of their team, I am likely going to see the nice photo of their team because Instagram's algorithm knows I love to see nice, fun people, photos, that kind of thing. So the more you can use people in your content, the more likely that the algorithm will kind of reward you for that. And like I said, it could be your hand in the image. It could just be that, finger or something like that. It could be the back of people's heads as they're watching a presentation. But to look like people actually does help the algorithm, which is a fun tip or trick. Thank you. And then I see a lot of posts that say link in bio. Why is that? What's the point versus putting it in the post? So Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter are friendly to most content, like we said. You can do pretty much anything on those platforms. Twitter, I'll kind of skip for this example, but on those three platforms, you can use a link and it is clickable. So when we think about when a potential client or when an audience member wants to engage with your content, let's say I'm selling a product, if I post an Instagram post and then in the caption I say, go ahead and buy my product, and then put a link in there, it's not going to be clickable. And I always ask people, when is the last time you saw a link on Instagram, opened up a browser window on your mobile phone, switched back to that screen, tried to memorize what that link was because you can't copy it, and then typed it into a browser window and then followed that link? That is a lot of work for somebody to do when they're mindlessly scrolling. So we try to keep that threshold really, really low. What we're asking them to do is just click something, right? So Instagram allows you to put that link in your bio. You can only put one, but some people use a platform called Linktree, so that one link actually leads to a page full of buttons that can link anywhere you need them to go. So let me put Linktree in the chat. And if everyone could do me a favor and take our survey, let me know what other things you're interested in, what you liked about today's session. I know we're running a few minutes over, but I can definitely stick on and answer any more questions. I have a couple more minutes here.
Great. And for those who have to leave us, thank you, Caroline. And a reminder that we will post the slides and the recording to de.gov/smallbizmonth. But in the meantime, does anybody have additional questions for Caroline? All right, it does not look like it.
I believe so. Yes, Andrea, comments will be recorded.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, this
Yes, I encourage you to scroll back up in those comments and start your networking early. Get your social media feet wet with some of those information that people have shared. So thank you all for sharing. I really look forward to connecting with you too. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with the Delaware Small Business Development Center, it's me on the other side. So I'd love to hear from you.
And thank you so much, Caroline. I learned more today, so it was very exciting and very useful as always. All right, everyone, we appreciate your time and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.